So now that you've seen a specific case of global hunger and what international organizations are doing to solve that problem, I want to talk to tie up this lecture by showing you how global and domestic hunger are similar. Essentially, hunger affects the poor, and the hungry poor exist in any country. Although hunger in the U.S. tends to be more transitory than it does in lesser developed countries, and also the definition and location differs slightly of where the hungry poor live in certain countries. The key issues that exist when you look at how people are addressing the hungry and poor, a key issue is the government or country's toolkit. What resources does the government have to provide for the citizens that exist in this situation? Primarily, the hungry poor are women and children. These situations affect them the most. As we go through this course, you'll see specific case studies of women and children in poverty and what's being done to help alleviate that problem. There's also, when you look at the percentage of a population that exists in this hungry state, they have a negative drain on a national economy. So there's a lot of opportunity costs that are lost with the hungry poor, as well as a lot of resource costs in feeding and providing for these people. When we look at human development, we see very similar trends, both domestically and internationally. Typically, there are intergenerational cycles of hunger, so you see this going through family by family by family throughout generations. You also see lack of education and lack of access to resources that exist in these populations. So they start off with their parents being uneducated, then because they're hungry, they're not able to concentrate in school, and then they get less of an education, and then that problem just continues throughout generations. You also see negative effects of hunger on brain development. Again, thinking back to the first 1,000 days of a child's life being the most pivotal for when their brain is developing. You see an overall weakening of the immune system in the hungry poor. You see these people being more prone to diseases. Often, the hungry poor are forced to make health versus food choices. So if they're given $100 a month or they make $100 a month, are they going to buy food that they need, or are they going to buy the medication that they need? And oftentimes, particularly in places with a high prevalence of HIV/AIDS and also hunger, you'll see people getting their HIV/AIDS medications and then selling it on a black market so that they can afford to buy food. Because for them, being able to eat is of more primary importance to them than getting the medications that they need to survive. When we look at long-term and societal impacts, we see, again, a similar trend between both global and domestic hunger, in that there's this intergenerational cycle of hunger and poverty that exists within certain regions of a society. So thinking back to the maps that you were shown, there's certain regions in Bangladesh that are prone to hunger and poverty. There's certain regions of the United States that are prone to hunger and poverty, and this is linked to that intergenerational cycle. You also see in these regions lack of access to education, resources that continue this trend. In the United States, you see programs like AmeriCorps or Teach for America, where the goal is to send young college graduates to these economically and socially depressed regions so that they can have teachers in the schools that are educated. You also see negative effects of hunger on brain development, so there's less brain capital to make a positive impact on society. You see low literacy rates, high unemployment rates. So again, these people aren't just hungry. Feeding them isn't just the solution to the problem. There needs to be systemic and national and international access to education, access to health care, access to resources, so that these people not only are being fed, but also being brought up so that they, instead of being a drain on a society, they can actually be a contributor to the society. So when you look at long-term societal development, when you have a large population of hungry poor, there's a big drain on the society. With the weakening of the immune system and these higher disease rates that you see, those healthcare costs get placed on the larger population to bear. You often see hungry poor forced to make, again, health versus food decisions, which keep them from contributing to society. When you have someone that's so desperate that they're selling their medication in order to buy food, that's not going to be a person that's able to contribute in any way, shape, or form to the society. So the more people that we can help to get out of this situation, then the more people are going to be able to positively contribute to the societies. Overall, when you think about the hungry poor, if as a society chooses to leave the hungry poor to fend for themselves, it's eventually going to end up costing that society exponentially more than if they just pay to provide for the goods and services that help the hungry poor move up that social ladder and out of poverty. So the more people that a society provides for to get them the resources that they need, to get them the food that they need, to get them the education and health care that they need, the society is actually going to be better off by paying for those things than trying to ignore the population and pretend like it doesn't exist. And with that, we'd like to conclude this unit.